Welcome back to the Director's Garage. I am your host and resident idiot, Michael, and today we have a title fight on our hands. As the Moondrop Starfield puts its belt on the line against two worthy competitors. The Moondrop Aria, which is like the younger versus older brother, really. It's like the Klitschkos of the IEM world. And they're taking on the Thieaudio Legacy 2. The good news here is that the most you're going to spend on any of these three IEMs is just $109. And I can tell you up front, all three of these IEMs will give you an audiophile experience for the cost of dinner in a nice restaurant, but with better leftovers. You will not go wrong by purchasing any of these. But which is best? Oh, waiter! Now, admittedly, Thieaudio has struggled with these Director's Garage shootouts in the past. The Starfield bested the Legacy 4, and as I've said many times in the past on the show, everyone should own a pair of Starfields. I think the Starfields should be required listening if you are into IEMs at all. I've already said that I prefer the Starfield to the Aria, mostly because of a slight loss in sub-bass in the Aria. The Aria overall is a smoother package, no question. But it's those rough edges on the Starfield which I feel are kind of part of the charm of it. They have more of an ability to surprise me, and who doesn't like a surprise, unless it's like a shark or a velociraptor? On the Thieaudio side, the Legacy 2 is very different from the Legacy 4. There's a new dynamic driver down low, and this will present a tougher challenge to the Moondrop. While there was a lot to like about the Legacy 4, it didn't image terribly well. The bass didn't impress, even with that bass enhancement switch turned on, and they went a little shouty on the top end. The Legacy 2 clears up a lot of these issues, so we've got ourselves a very close competition today. Now I'm going to start with Ergonomics because, I always do. I don't know why, but I do. And all three of these IEMs, they're very comfortable to me. I didn't have a problem with the fit of any of them. They're each on the smallish side. They provide a good seal. A lot to like here. Graphically, cosmetically, it's the Aria for me. The thin gold arcs and the flat black finish just work for me on every single level. When I first saw images of the Aria, I thought, oh, Moondrop is releasing a new flagship. But believe it or not, these are the cheapest of the three, clocking it at just $80. That's insane. But there's nothing cheap about the sound. The Legacy 2 has a gorgeous surf theme with this translucent blue housing. Really impressive. The Starfield wowed me at first when they first came out because they've got this plum crazy thing that changes from purple and blue depending on the angle of the light to it. But the design feels a little bit dated to me now. So yeah, it's the Aria for the win as far as design. Now cable-wise, the Legacy 2 has a gorgeous 4-2 braid that's just, I would probably pay $100 for the cable, honestly. Like, if you told me this was $100, I'd go, yeah, that's a nice cable for $100. But you get the IEM with it, The Aria has this woven cloth over the cable. It's only 2 single. Not the most impressive as far as construction, but it doesn't tangle at all, and it feels very nice on the hands. The Starfield has the most color-coded. These really do match the IEMs well, but the cheap silicone has never impressed me. It feels like cheap plastic. It's the Legacy 2 for me for the cable. Now next up, I'm going to make a case for the cases. Yeah, I really did just say that. I'm sorry, that was really awful. The Starfield and Aria share the same case. It's this oyster-like case with a zipper, kind of clamshelly, really, really cheap. This looks like it's 30 cents worth of material, whereas on contrast, the Thieaudio Legacy 2 comes in an identical case. This is the identical case that the Kinera Nanna, a $1,000 IEM, ships with the same exact case, except this is blue leather that's coated in color to the IEM. This is an easy, easy, easy win for the Thieaudio Legacy 2. Both the Aria and the Legacy 2 have now scored big early round wins, but it's now time to look at the sound properties. I'm going to begin with the imaging, and this is where the speed of the Legacy 2 really comes into play. These are shockingly fast. These are faster than anything I've heard anywhere near this price point. The speed poses just a huge advantage and a very laser sharp image of whatever's playing through them. Both the Starfield and the Aria image quite well. I would probably give the imaging edge to the Starfield, but it's really the Legacy 2 that drops a next level image over the Moondrops. Now, when it comes to dynamics, I still think the OG Starfield has it here. That quiet to loud effect, the Starfield still brings in tremendous surprises in its dynamic range. The Aria is a near mirror image of the Starfield, and the Legacy is good, but the punchiness of the Starfield just gives it the dynamics win. So let's talk soundstage, and the Legacy 2 has a really interesting soundstage. It sounds kind of like there's refractions that kind of hit you sometimes from different angles and locations around the soundstage. It's a very nice immersive effect. Actually has a little bit of Tia Forte in it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that when it comes to the soundstage. And the soundstage is a bit of an oval shape. It's a little bit closer in the front than it is on the sides. By contrast, the Aria has a more circular soundstage. It's very circular around you, and I think that the Aria outshines the Legacy 2 here. The Starfield has a very similar soundstage to the Aria, but it's not quite as wide. I can't say that any one of these is necessarily better than the other, but they are different. I'd maybe give the edge to the Aria if I was pushed. So I'm going to move on to detail retrieval, and this is an area where the Starfield has typically struggled in past shootouts, especially through the mids. The Starfield is prone to congestion. It's this globbing effect when a lot of sound comes in the mid-range. And to my ears, this has really been improved with a new driver coating on the Aria. But the Legacy 2's speed really brings forward detail that neither the Aria nor the Starfield could match. And it's a clear win for the Legacy 2 for me. Next up, we're going to talk sound structure, and that means we are talking mids and treble and bass, but nope, not in that order.
Oh, come on!
It never gets old. First up, we're going to talk about the bass, and this is a category that the Starfield has absolutely dominated. I've heard $1,000 headphones that produce worse bass than the Starfield. Now, the Aria sort of refined the bass a little bit, and there's not as much presence to the bass in the Aria as the Starfield, and that's in part why I prefer the Starfield to the Aria. However, there is more bass texture, there's more detail in the bass on the Aria, so it's not a total loss. It's just they refined it a little bit, and I kind of like that grittier, deeper punch of the Starfield. But step back, everyone, because the Legacy 2 turns this all upside down. Why? 3 words: beryllium dynamic driver. Not only does it have better bass than the Starfield, kicking deep down into that sub bass, it also adds speed, detail that the Starfield cannot reproduce. This is what instantly engaged me when I did the sound impressions the other day. And head to head, it's a clear win for the Legacy 2. And that's why the Legacy 2 is perhaps better compared to the Blessing 2 Dusk at more than 3 times the price. Now next we go to the mids, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Legacy 2 is so fast that the mids stay clean no matter what you throw at them. It's an easy win for the Legacy 2, and the Starfield has always had major congestion issues with the mids when a passage in the music gets really complex. Now, and the Aria does address this flaw. There's no question they paid attention to that, but they're still slow in comparison to the Legacy 2. It's a win there. Finally, we're going to talk about the treble, of course, and the Legacy 2 has a nice clean treble, but it can push a little bit shouty on the wrong tracks. They get a little bit on the harsh side. I think that the Moondrop products both just deal with the treble a little bit better, and I would give a slight edge to the Aria. They're a little bit smoother through the treble. That's not always a good thing, because sometimes you want that little crispy edges on things. It gives it a little bit of sparkle. But I think I just preferred the Aria over the Starfield. It's going to be an Aria win through the treble. So let's talk music, and this is where we take a look at different music tracks and their real-world performance on each headphone. It's something no instrument or device can measure. And I'm going to start today with the AC/DC classic Back in Black. This is a seminal album. It was a make-or-break effort from Angus and Malcolm Young. The band had already begun writing songs for the album when their singer, Bon Scott, died from alcohol poisoning in February of 1980. Within a month, they not only decided to continue on as AC/DC, but they had chosen British singer Brian Johnson to replace Bon. And they got to work right away, recording from April to May in the Bahamas, creating one of the greatest albums in rock history, and the second best-selling record of all time, bested only by Michael Jackson's Thriller. And the album was released in July, just 5 months after their lead singer died. Now, this album was produced by the legendary Mutt Lange, who worked with the group previously on Highway to Hell. That was with Bon as the lead singer. Mutt produced Def Leppard, the Boomtown Rats, Foreigner, Huey Lewis, The Cars, who's who of 80s pop and rock music. He was later married to country superstar Shania Twain. He produced her hit records and then went on to work with Britney Spears and Lady Gaga. Quite a career. And what he brought out of this band, who had just seen the most painful trauma you could imagine, were 10 of the liveliest, hardest, bawdiest rockers the world had ever heard. Much showcases the band's new lead singer's upper range, but contains it enough so that Angus's riffs don't get lost beneath it. It's an amazing balancing act, and if you're lucky enough to own an original pressing like this one here, you get to hear one of the best mastering jobs ever done by a guy named Bob Ludwig. It's amazing. Now, all three of these IEMs do killer jobs with Back in Black. It's a party in your ears from start to finish. On Hell's Bells, things are a little cleaner on the Aria over the Starfield, but the Starfield punches a bit better in the sub bass. The Legacy 2 has an even punchier bass and gave me a more immersive experience than the Moondrop ear speakers. And my biggest concern, the treble stays wonderfully aligned with the rest of the mix, even at higher volumes on the Legacy 2, and it earns a win for me over the Starfield, which came in second. Next up, I'm selecting a pop recording, Taylor Swift's awesome Folklore album from 2020. On Cardigan, the Legacy 2 presented a gorgeous soundstage with small details popping all over the soundstage and mix. It's particularly beautiful. Things are a little less 3D on the Starfield, and Taylor is a little more distant, which maybe doesn't work as well on such an intimate song. But it's still a great experience. The Aria presents a better image than the Starfield and a better sense of that 3D space I was talking about earlier. It's the Legacy 2 for me on this one, but the Aria comes in a very close second. And finally, I'm going back to 1980 for the Donald Fagen and Walter Becker masterpiece, Gaucho by Steely Dan. One of the greatest recordings of all time, no question. This album has clean lines everywhere. It's a precise attack on the senses. It's an album that feels extremely intentional with every note, beat, and chord. The album is probably less romantic than their Asia effort, but the performances are cleaner across the board, sometimes to its own detriment. Critics often cite this record as coming across as over-rehearsed. And I too think that Asia is perhaps a better album, but there's no denying the mastery that is at play here in the studio. And all three of our IEMs today brought something interesting to this show. I loved the performance of Babylon Sisters on the Starfield. It was just engaging. But the Aria shows a little more intimacy, and I was more connected emotionally to the music. The Legacy 2 has some technical prowess here that really sparkles on the presentation of the instrumentation. I'm going to give a slight win here to the Aria. I just felt a little more connected to the performances. So before I pick a winner, yeah, I said it, and
Pick a winner!
it's pretty clear by now where things are headed, but I want to say a couple of things about these Moondrop entries. They do sound nearly identical in practice, and there is no way I would pass a blind taste test between them. The Aria is a little faster than the Starfield and a little smoother overall. The Starfield has a little bit better bass, and they're perhaps a little more fun. I would choose the Starfield in a head-to-head, but if your choice is really between the Starfield and the Aria, you can probably save the $30. You'll get the Starfield sound with just a smidge less bass oomph, but you'll gain a lot more speed, and not to mention it's the best looking IEM in this shootout by a long shot. At $80, you can't go wrong. But when it comes to a winner of this three-way shootout, the new budget champ is the Legacy 2 and its beryllium-coated dynamic driver. They are faster with a deeper sub bass, they have a bit better focus, and they have a better case, a better cable. Moondrop fans who love the Aria and the Starfield, I totally understand. There's a reason they were my best in class for the past year. They are still an outstanding value for the money, and I'd take either the Aria or the Starfield over many other IEMs like Thieaudio's own Legacy 4, the Mezerai Solo, or even the much more expensive Tinner's P2. But if you're giving me the choice to take only one of these three, it's the Legacy 2 for me. Thieaudio has created a remarkable set at an unbelievable price, and we thank Linsol for providing the Legacy 2 for today's shootout. Now, the win has ramifications that stretch pretty far beyond just this episode. Naturally, I have to purchase a pair since they won the shootout, and the unopened pair is going to go directly into our 2,000 subs giveaway. Look for that announcement next, and as I teased, I'm giving away a lot of product in this one. So make sure that you are subscribed and the bell thingy is clicked so that you don't miss a thing. I also have 2 more Audio 46 products waiting in the wings, so look for those What's in the Box episodes soon. And our mega shootout is just around the corner as soon as my Abyss returns from New York, where it's getting a quick tune-up. Give this episode a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and do the other thing if I annoyed the snot out of you. I can't say I blame you either way, and I will see you before you know it.